In this photograph of the DC3 at night, I had literally been talking to the company. In this case, it's called Catalina Flying Boats, and they fly cargo to and from the city of Long Beach to the island of Catalina, just off the coast of Los Angeles. In the summer, they fly 4 or 5 flights a day. In the winter, just maybe 1 flight a day. But it is a legitimate business here on the Long Beach airport. The truck you see, the fuel truck, is one of the fuelers they use to service the aircraft and, do the work. All the employees in the photograph are actually, they're really employees. I refuse to, in this series of pictures, I refuse to rent square-jawed models and get cool backgrounds and lease some piece of equipment. This is all legitimately parts of the scene that happens every day. I like to think that the scene we're looking at probably happens every day across America 1,000 times over, more so, of people working hard with integrity and character to perform their job. When I'm doing this photograph, when I'm creating this composition and putting all these elements together, I'm not so much thinking about backlighting and angles and colors. The words in my head that I'm trying to kind of hold on to create this photograph are more words of integrity and character and honor, that all these people who work so hard in what might be considered just, hard physical labor, often in the sunshine, and, that it counts for what they do, that the fuel guy, the mechanic, the pilot, all these people have somebody else's lives in their hand as they do their job. It's vital they do their job correctly, professionally, every single time, or there could be consequences. So ultimately, when I'm trying to make the shot and put it all together and present it to the public, it's not so much of a photograph of an airplane at night with a fuel truck. It's about people working together with teamwork, with integrity, with honesty, and taking pride in what they do, taking pride in a good job. Interestingly, and out of sheer coincidence, I did notice there are 4 different ethnicities represented in this picture. The fuel truck guy is a recent immigrant from Cambodia. The mechanic at the bottom next to the engine is from Guatemala. The gentleman on the wing is from Mexico, and the pilot, as I'm told, from Irish descent. That I thought it's an interesting observation that in this great, great country of ours, it is truly a vast melting pot. One of our many, many strengths, which I think sometimes people tend to overlook. It's because of this diversity and mix of peoples and cultures and values that are brought to the table that makes us such a great country often. And this photograph just happened to sort of capture that as just a total casual coincidence. One of the things I never do in these pictures is I never cherry pick people or bring somebody else out like a ringer from a different, background. I always use the people who work in these locations, on these businesses. These are, for lack of a better word, documentary in nature, but they are contrived in the sense that the scene never actually happens on its own. I did put all these pieces together and compose them, arrange them, to make sort of a whimsical interpretation of what these people do every day and what happens across the nation countless times. An extra little thing I included into the picture just for myself, and I think as a kind of a tribute to the plane and pilots who fly them all these years, is that even though this airplane's surrounded by a fuel truck and the guy's working on the engine so it's disassembled, there's cargo in front of the airplane and all this stuff's happening, even there's a man standing on the wing with a hose of fuel, the pilot is still in the cockpit with his arms sticking out, leaning out, and sort of looking forward into the future. And I sort of did that, I thought, just as a tribute. When I was a kid growing up, I'd seen so many photographs of these beautiful airplanes in the old days when they were relatively new, and inevitably they're all polished silver, and there's a square-jawed pilot sitting there with a, visor on his head, arms sticking out, and kind of looking into the distance like they're about to take off into the blue. And even though the airplane is surrounded by all this stuff, I thought it'd be a nice gesture to the past and these people who work with them and fly them still, to include that little visual. I'm not sure if anybody would catch it, that it's somewhat ridiculous, but I think it's a beautiful sort of nod to history. Ultimately, when everything was said and done, the photo shoot itself took about 9 hours or so from when I showed up to when we were actually done that evening. It was a long, difficult, often painful experience for everybody involved, but very rewarding. It's interesting and fun to watch all these pieces be exposed by myself. Altogether, there was about 700 plus individual frames I exposed on location at the time. All the employees were involved in helping compose the shot and putting pieces together. Only a few of them were actually used in the picture. I want to still have a comfortable composition, not just pack it with a lot of people. I'm trying to get a balance between the aircraft, the equipment, the fuel truck, and the people who work on this stuff. At the very end of the photo shoot, when I finally got all the pieces back home in my computer, it still took me about 50 hours, literally 50 hours to compose and recombine all these little pieces I photographed back into a single homogeneous image. Hopefully when you look at it, that is my intention, it should just look like this incredibly beautiful, amazingly lucky snapshot. As my aunt once commented when she was looking over my shoulder at the computer as I'm working on a picture, and there's all this stuff going on and equipment and people, and there's a guy, and she said, "Does that man know you're taking his picture when you took this picture?" And I thought that's so charming that that's exactly the reaction I want, that it looks like just this incredible lucky shot I happen to be walking by and click and wow, look at this. And so that's kind of what the whole thing's about.